Okay, so I'm sitting here today with John Jolliffe, who is my therapist, our therapist. Every Monday morning at 9 we meet. We've really been having some interesting conversations, not just today, but just as of recently of what's going on. And I thought that it would be interesting at this point because there's so much going on. Every time you turn the news on, every time you pick up your phone, it just seems to be another trigger that puts us in a place of uncertainty, anxiety, and fear. And it seems the thing that I'm most concerned about personally and within my business is there's so much fear. And I've just been thinking today, because I sell real estate for a living, and there's, a number of deals that we have in escrow. There is a ton of fear from the buyers or the sellers. Maybe I shouldn't buy. The thing I keep on thinking is, I wish I would have bought my dream house earlier. And I don't mean to be sarcastic about that, but it's like, if we're in this shelter in place or stay at home, in my mind now, it's like I've spent so much time building my net worth for the future, like stakes in the freezer long term, that I've almost forgotten about what it is that I'd really like today. A home with an office, with a gym, with a sauna, with a pool, with an area you can...
Okay, so the mistake I think you're making, and I think we all make the same mistake, is that we're thinking of externals. And we're thinking of going, if I had the home, if I had the gym, if I had the playground in the backyard, I think we're thinking of externals. Quite frankly, if you take the internals to the dream house, and the internals are aligned wrong, you're going to be panicked and frightened in the dream home, and you're not going to be able to enjoy the dream home.
So basically, anything could become the dream home if you have. It's kind of like, don't look for new landscapes, look for new eyes.
Very nice.
So before I ask John some questions, I want to give him a little background, because ultimately the reason I want to share with everybody that's watching is John has an extraordinary background, and so I want to give us a little bio of what you've done and your history.
I probably would say, after the Vietnam and the college and all that, I went to work for the National Geographic Society. And with the National Geographic Society, traveling all over the world, I learned about indigenous thinking. These people are not governed by intellect. They are governed by experience. And experience teaches you different things. And I have all kinds of stories about, various kinds of things. I was tested one time by a chief in a village in Papua New Guinea in West Irian Jaya. I said, I want to help. I want to help the village. I want to help you. I'm going to be here for a while with the cameraman and all that. He says, okay, point the way to the future. Now, this is through my guide, my native speaker. Point the way to the future. And so I pointed this way. Then he said, point the way to the past. And I pointed that way. He mumbled something and walked off, and I never saw him again. I was never asked to help. And so I asked my native speaker some days later, I said, I think I was put through a test and I didn't pass. He says, yeah, you didn't. I said, well, what's so complicated about the future and the past? He says, in the indigenous world, we can see the past through music and language and art. So the past for us is right in front of us. But we can't see the future, so it's behind us. I've never been as confident as I was that day. I've never been that confident again. So I thought, if I've got that wrong, how much more might I have wrong? I think in Western culture, particularly in our community here in Southern California, I think we've gotten a lot of comfort from externals, from your portfolio, from your properties, from your who you marry, and where your kids go to school, and how well they're doing, and what everything looks like, and all that material and external stuff. I think this fear, this unpredictableness in terms of our future, I think it has the potential to reset us and move the game of life inside. And so we pull together, we look at our vulnerabilities and our weaknesses, and we learn new tools and new perspectives, like new eyes, like you're saying. I think this is what we need. We don't need more externals. We need more internals. And I think we need to embrace uncertainty. I think uncertainty has to become a part of our in our tool set, that we can embrace it, that we don't get ahead of the story.
So before you go there, so I'm just thinking about this because it reminds me of when I was in high school. My friend and I were messing around, and I was on a skateboard, and he literally pushed the skateboard with his foot, and the skateboard shot out, and I went right to my face. I literally couldn't put my hands up.
Yeah.
And there's an element metaphorically that's what's happened to us. Like, this is something that nobody's ever seen. We're talking about a virus that has really created so much uncertainty economically in the world. People are losing their jobs. I mean, what's verifiable? 2.5 million people have now filed for unemployment. A lot of people are living week to week, month to month. Portfolios, net worth, all these things are so. It's easy to say that, like, look inside, but like literally we're on the ground. We're groundless right now. Like, it's been pulled out from under us. So how do you do that in these moments where it's like, it sounds great in theory, and I want to believe in theory, and ultimately I feel like I have this sense of kind of peace and calmness even amidst all this, but that kind of has something to do with I've prepared myself financially and for our family so that I'm not up against what a lot of people are up against. So practically, how do you do that? You know, we're in this spot, and it's really easy to say, but how does somebody do that? Like, what techniques or tools would you give them to do that today?
Well, I had a client that had several $1 billion, and he killed himself. So you'd think he'd have enough to get through some tough times. This wasn't the virus period, but it was another tough time. Assets other than internal assets are going to make it difficult to get through anything. Just raw material assets are going to make it tough to get through things. It is the internal things. So
instead of go outside, the motto today is go inside. So what tools would you tell us or tell me?
Well, I would say keep all of your how you think is so very, very important. There's a lot of negative talk. And what we're trying to replace negative talk with, negative thinking, we're trying to replace it with positive thinking. The thing that negative thinking and positive thinking have in common is both of them are untrue. And so the problem we're having, a lot of us in the internal game, is that we're entertaining unverifiable thoughts. Can't prove them, not verifiable. They're either negative or they're positive.
Which is crazy, because every time you turn the TV on, there's another expert trying to tell us this is how it's going to play out. And then there's another one.
And
then there's
all these experts, God bless them, all these experts have never been through this. So they're not really an expert on this. There are no experts. There are people with commentary. There are people who've been through other difficult times, okay, but not through this time. This is a world first time, one-off experience. Maybe it's a one-off, but it's an experience where there are no experts. Now, where do the leaders come from? I don't think the leaders come from politics, because they're always worried about being elected. I don't think the leaders come from medicine, because this is something brand new. So where do the leaders come from? I think the leaders come from the poets. I think they come from the artists. I think they come from the musicians. I think they come from the influencers. I think they come from the people who are taking what's inside and putting it outside. I think that's where you're going to find leadership, because there's similarity to this is the worst day of my life. How many of us, how many listening, have had an experience where they thought they would never get through something? Maybe the loss of a child, maybe stranded in an airport, maybe you lost your passport, maybe you lost your job. Before I came into my profession, and I've been in 43 years being a therapist, my last job I lost. Brand new marriage, brand new home, brand new baby, brand new XJ6 Jaguar, and absolutely no job. I got fired. And the person who fired me said, "You can do this job, but you really need to be doing something else. But you have you're so insecure, your self-esteem and self-confidence is so low, you won't leave this job for something better. So I'm going to help you. You're fired." I was so traumatized, I couldn't even go to the unemployment line. I went right to bed and did not pass go, and was upset, depressed, or whatever for 2 or 3 months until I reset. And I've never I never looked back. It's been the most exciting thing I've ever done in the last 43 years.
So that goes, so a couple of things. One, that goes to the whole kind of statement, life isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. And so if you take this global crisis, let's say the world virus, right? It's not happening to us, it's happening for us. So going back to the thinking, because I think what you said, like, I'm assuming that nobody would compare what our today's with our worst day. But in our mind, we're predicting that it's going to be our worst. We're having this. So how would you, what would be the steps you would tell people? I mean, does this mean we don't go on? I mean, the best thing to do is just not listen, just to quarantine ourselves, turn the TV off, turn Instagram off, get our guitar, do all the things we wanted to do. I'm not sure we could go rent an RV and just go on a vacation. That's probably the best thing. But are you saying or what tools would you give people that really, like, with any addiction, I think this may be an addiction to this thinking or this fear or this control thing. So what would you give?
No, I wouldn't rely upon people who are frightened and nervous and are entertaining a lot of unverifiable thoughts. People who want to see down the staircase of life. We only have illumination for one step. We need to be...
Whoa. We only have illumination for one step. Great.
Exactly.
Yeah, great line.
Here's how you solve problems. I can solve any problem in 5 minutes or less.
Okay.
Any problem
Expand
that
on
you
that.
give me.
Okay.
Business, space travel, whatever it is. All you have to do is find the next logical step. A guy called me and said, "I can't come to therapy today. I've got so many problems." I said, "Isn't that what therapy is? Is to help you kind of sort through all this stuff?" He says, "Well, I've got 5 major problems." I go, "What's the problem?" He says, "I've got to fire a producer in my movie. And my wife is divorcing me, and she has given me a counter proposal to the divorce settlement. I'm building a new house, and I have to approve, blueprints and things like that, and there's things like that." I said, "Well, why don't you come in, and then in 50 minutes, we'll tackle all those." I really want to say, "Why don't you give me 10 minutes, and we'll solve all those problems." Solving a problem, whether it's the problem we have today, with our kids being home from school, and how do we manage that, or the future, the unpredictable, the impact upon us, whatever the issue is, whatever the so-called problem is, we just have to figure out the next step. And so I said to him, "Take whatever problem you want." He says, "How about my wife and I are divorcing, and she's made a counter proposal." I said, "Well, what's the next step?" "I got to call my attorney and have him read the counter proposal." I said, "Okay, and when are you going to do that?" Sounds like the next step. Nothing else you can do. When are you going to do that? This week. What day? Oh, I got to tell you a day? I said, sure, this is an appointment to keep. Okay, Thursday. What time Thursday? Oh my God, I have to, look at this as an appointment to keep. The moment you put it in your week at a glance calendar, then your problem's solved. And then you go on to the next one and the next one. And so with everything going on today, there is a challenge. So the question is, since you only have illumination for the next step, what is the next step? What is the logical next thing you should do? About toilet paper.
Okay, so let me stop there for 1 second. So what I get from this is that when people are like in their heads with doubt, fear, anxiety about what's going, it basically stops them from acting. And you're saying right now, like the next step is just to act. Now, I would say understand, but the other thing is a lot of people aren't at work. A lot of people's business have shut down to a halt. So they're like, well, how do I act? Is it they're focusing on the wrong thing to act upon? Would that be it? And then one other statement I'll let you, my wife read me something yesterday, and I'm going to butcher it, but there was somebody that had tremendous fear about something. And I think that, you know, his dad said to him, hey, anytime you see you're so afraid of these things, look for the people that are helping. And you'll notice there's always people helping. So be a helper. And is there something about this moment where, or this time that this is happening for us instead of to us, it's to reset and start saying, here's an opportunity, we can be helpers. So how would you respond to that?
Remember in World War II, England elected and appointed a drunk, a loser, a person of it wasn't noteworthy to save the country.
That was Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill. Okay, the last person you would think. I don't know that things are happening to us. I don't know they're happening for us.
Okay.
I think what's happening is what's in us is being exposed. And there are revealed, okay? Things are uncovered more than they're discovered. And
it's almost leakage.
Pardon me?
We're almost leaking when they're uncovered.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that I think there's a Winston Churchill in a number of us. I think there's leadership in a number of us. We are used to being employed. We're used to being led. But there is this leader inside of us. And what we need to be listening to is leaders, not commentators, people who inspire us, people who help us focus on verifiable truth, not negative thinking or positive thinking. There is a leader in many of us that we have to tap into to calm the storm. And calming the storm doesn't mean you predict the future. It means that you only have illumination for the next step in a number of areas. So people say, we don't have enough whatever. Okay, let's focus on that and find out the next logical step. Let's calendar it, let's take it, and that problem solved, let's move on to something else. I don't know that you necessarily going to find leadership in gossip, in rumor.
So that means no Instagram, no Facebook, don't turn on
you
Fox
have to be
News,
selective.
MSN. Like basically what we're playing in the movie of our life, we need to be very selective and maniacal about our filter.
And I think that's the reset. I think we have looked to the news. I think we have looked to certain things to give us comfort and direction. Unfortunately, we've forgotten that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News are people's companies. And they need earballs and eyeballs in order to satisfy the sponsors. The old saying, if it bleeds, it leads. And I think things have to be sensational. The interesting thing about human behavior is that when we think about things, it's easier to go negative than it is to go positive.
So wait, go back. I just lost train of thought because you have to bleed to lead.
Well, the news media, if it bleeds, it leads.
Got it.
So we look at the rubbernecker. The father who's walking down the beach with his son in the evening, that news doesn't sell. The father who dismembers his son at the evening beach walk sells.
Right.
So when we are thinking about things, we typically go to the negative. It's easier to be critical than to be inspiring.
Right.
But there is an inspiring in us. We have to develop that muscle. It's a weak muscle because we've kind of depended on the news to inspire us. So we've depended on other people, our boss, our employer, our sponsor, or whoever. We've looked outside. This is an inside game. It is going to reveal you in ways that you don't like, and you're going to find perhaps something in there that is undeveloped, that inspires you. And you have to go inside. I have 5 rules of optimum mental and emotional health. I'll just give them to you very quickly, but they're all about the inside game. Is your thinking based on objective reality? Verifiable reality.
Like you could record it.
You could record it on a tape recorder. Somebody actually said that.
Like I could record, I'm going to die from coronavirus. I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to be able to eat.
I'll never get through this.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Can you take a picture of never getting through it? Can you tape record never getting through it? No. Can't. So it's unverifiable. So it's not objective reality. So optimum mental and emotional health happens when your thinking is based on objective reality. Secondly, when your thinking helps you preserve your life. I'd be better off dead than alive is not going to preserve your life.
Right.
You know, I better go get drunk or just drop out. It's not going to help you preserve your life.
Which there's a lot of easy buttons. People are like, let me get through this. Let me drink. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me not deal with it. Let me stay asleep unaware.
Well, one of the misunderstandings of alcohol and drugs is that people do it to feel better. And when we're not feeling good now, frightened and insecure, we oftentimes look to alcohol or drugs or some chemistries to feel better. That's never been true.
Yeah.
We do drugs and alcohol to feel different. And then when we feel different, we call that better.
Right.
So preserving your life is option number 2, rule number 2. Rule number 3 is when your thinking helps you accomplish your goals most quickly. Accomplishing goals quickly. It's your action. Take action.
Take action.
Be proactive.
Massive action.
But it's just the next step. It's not the third step. 4th rule, when your thinking helps you keep out of significant trouble with other people. The best mental health advice you could ever hear from me is seek to understand more than try to be understood during these times. There are people who are worried. There are people who are overly anxious. The best thing we can do is to seek to understand more than try to be understood. I want to hear you. I want to be there for you. I'm present. What are you saying? How are you feeling? The alternative doesn't work. Shut up and listen to me.
Yeah.
That's not leadership.
Right.
Okay. And the 5th rule is when your thinking helps you prevent, and if you can't prevent, you quickly eliminate significant emotional conflict. Thinking that helps you significantly eliminate emotional conflict is going to help you. So these 5 rules and other insights, we're never perfect. We're going to fall off the path. We're going to get lost along the way, right? The way we measure maturity is how quickly you can recover. When you realize you're entertaining unverifiable information, you're trying to see too far down the staircase of life, you're way ahead of the story, okay? You're listening to commentary rather than verifiable information. People who do that, once we fall off the wagon, we try to get back on the wagon. And the sooner you can recover, the more maturity you're showing. We need maturity. If people listening want to get a copy of an article I wrote on mass communication fatigue syndrome, it basically I identified and said, some people have an aversion, like a hypersensitivity or an allergy to news, particularly bad news.
Yeah.
And I have an article called Mass Communication Fatigue Syndrome. They can just email me and tell me they want to.
So we'll send it. So a couple of things I'm thinking. One, instead of go outside, go inside. Like that's the focus. Go inside. Anything that makes you feel uncomfortable or discomfort, maybe you should sit with and figure out why and not try to escape. Number 3, and I'm just kind of going through these things right now, turn off the TV, turn off all of this dialogue, this commentary.
Laughter's good. Laughter's very good.
Right. Laughter, have fun. And with that, find that inner spot that makes you feel connected and makes you like really like is a
develops the inner part.
Develops a leadership, right? So, and do more of that.
Yeah.
Like right now, the stuff that makes you feel good and connected, do more of. Pay specific, close attention to the things that are making you disconnected. And there's a last thing that I might get it wrong. Rumi has a quote that says, if you want to be a light, you got to be the candle that burns. So part of that process of being a light is going through that burn, and this is part of that process.
But remember, we don't need a bunch of evangelists, positive thinkers. What we need is to evangelize the inner part of us that is so rich, and find the leadership and the inspiration inside. Be a self-evangelist. Hold uncertainty. There's nothing wrong with uncertainty. And fact is, I don't know there is such a thing as uncertainty. It's certain that this pandemic is going to be, there's going to be more bad news. People are going to lose their jobs. It's going to be a reset for our culture. We're going to have less resources externally than we do today. So where's the uncertainty? There's plenty of certainty. But the point is, where's the leadership in the uncertainty? We've all had days that we said, I'll never get through this. This is the worst day of my life. And we found the resources to do that. I'm hoping we don't get through this. It sounds contradictory.
Yeah.
Sounds counterintuitive. I'm hoping we don't get through this. And what I'm saying is, I'm hoping that there are lessons that we're going to learn in this, whether it's about handshaking or maybe taking our immunity system for granted, and we're smoking too much, we're drinking too much, we're doing all kinds of crazy things that rob our immunity system, we're not sleeping, whatever it is. I'm hoping we don't get through this. I'm hoping we take from this and move into our new lives, because this is going to have an expiration date. And it probably is sooner rather than later. Maybe 90 days.
Meaning we will not get through this, what you're saying, but this too will pass.
Well, this too will pass. Everything that is hurtful, painful, ugly, scary, always has an expiration date. So there's an expiration date to this. Let's not get through this. Let's not just try to get through this. Let's try to learn from this and take those tools forward, because there's going to be another bad day ahead. There's certainty you're going to have another day.
Yeah, the stock market's down 1,000 points again today.
There's going to be another day where you're going to say, I'll never live through this. Let's take and learn the lessons from this worst day of our lives and take it forward, so that maybe the next bad day is not as bad as this day. Let's grow and learn and find the leader, find the influencer, find the inspirer within each of us. It goes inside, not outside.
So thank you so much today for doing this. And I just want to say, I would love to connect you to John if you would like to talk further, personally or whatever. But just wanted to take an opportunity through all of this crazy stuff to muddle through, to try to give you a couple of pearls of wisdom to really take this time to go inside. And it sounds like really, when you're looking at history or his story or her story, this is time for us to write our story.
That's right.
to write our story of how we're going to go through this, because we are living in history. And someday people will say to us, man, you guys lived through the pandemic of 2020. And depending on our perspective of then will be whether or not we took this on to go inside or go outside. So I'll connect everybody. Thanks again. Thanks for being here today. We appreciate it.